All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start. Um, so what's going on, guys? This is my first time here in the family room Discord. This is actually going to be recorded and put on YouTube, so we'll be posting the link other places, right? But as far as like the actual full video, we're just going to leave that to YouTube. And today, as you guys already know, you guys probably know her better than me. We have Rissa on the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about not just Web3, right, but her Web2 background, kind of like just her outlook and perspective on things, right? So before we get started, I always like to do, spice it up, and do kind of like an icebreaker game. So this game is called Buzzwords, right? A lot of you guys come from Web3, so you guys already know what buzzwords are. On this one, we have 17 words, and she's gonna have 3 minutes in total, right, to basically tell us the first thing that comes to mind when she hears these words. She doesn't know what the words are. I didn't tell her the words before, so these are legit all on the spot and random, and they kind of give us like a better insight of how she thinks. So we're gonna go ahead and start if Rissa is ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go ahead and get this timer on. And basically, the reason why we do the game is once we wrap up this year's of interviews, I'm going to send everybody a gift. I haven't told people what the gift is yet, but you only get the gift if you can pass the test on this interview, which is basically finishing all 17 words with the response within 3 minutes. So let me go ahead and turn this on. Guys, give me a second. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with the first word. The first word is alpha.
Beta.
Okay, Women's History Month.
LGBT. Uh, yeah, LGBT is history as well.
Clonex.
So next, Murakami.
Twitter.
Fudders.
Okay, Community.
Strength.
Blue Chip.
Pudgy Penguins.
Ooh, I like that one. Artist.
Artist. Disney Crest.
Auctions.
Dutch auctions. Sour.
Yeah, Hong Kong.
Home.
Dow.
Uh, question mark.
Okay, Play to Earn.
Sus.
Okay, Blur.
Stimmy.
Okay, College.
NYU.
Shills.
Pechos.
Ordinals.
Meta.
Flowers.
Daffodils.
Okay, and then the last one is collectibles.
NFTs.
Okay, perfect. So that was like a minute and 32 seconds. So you passed that test. Congratulations, and get some claps in the chat in the audience. You know what I'm saying? But let's go ahead and jump right into the interview, right? So
Yeah.
the first question I wanted to ask before we start asking a lot of Web3 stuff, right? Because with the Web3 stuff, I'm pretty sure we can talk all day. We're going to be bouncing questions back and forth at you. But as far as like your Web2 background, right? Like, where are you from? How did you grow up? And what was the like first initial thing that kind of brought you into Web3, or maybe the first person who introduced you to a crypto coin or an NFT? Can you just like speak on that after you speak about your upbringing and your background?
Yeah. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I went to a local school there and then international school. And then I came to college in the US. I was first on the West Coast for a year. And then I spent 3 more years at NYU in New York, where I studied finance and accounting. I studied abroad in London as well for half a year. So got to travel around Europe and all that. I interned at Goldman Sachs at the time in the securities division,
Mm-hmm.
where there was sales and trading and prime brokerage, and I was rotating through prime brokerage, credit trading desks, and luckily got an offer for credit trading, and that's where sort of my financial career started. My team at the time was amazing. I worked under a French boss that, when, like, during the Lehman crisis, he was the only trader in Asia to make money in Bear Stearns, and just an absolute go-to trader. And, till now, he's still a mentor. And I actually wanted to found an NFT project prior to me becoming an alpha caller, and he was going to be one of the advisors. So we're just pretty close, and always someone that I could always, reach out to. And he's sort of the first person that taught me how to value anything, really, because I remember him, as someone who has like 30, 40 years tenure, to talk to an intern, and literally say, if you have any questions, ask me, and be willing to mentor and be willing to teach someone
Hmm.
so junior. I think that made a really big impact in my very early career. And I think that, I remember him teaching me a very important lesson, holding a pen in front of me, saying, like, how much is this pen worth? And, I gave a bunch of answers, but, the answer is how much the next person is willing to pay for it. And that's really it. And that really is like the fundamentals of everything that you trade, every asset class. It really is not, what you think it's worth, right? It's really where is your exit, and who's the next person that's willing to pay for it, right? And so you could be buying literally, like, you could be buying a piece of paper, right, that is meaningless to you but maybe really meaningful to someone, so that the price is that price. And so that's a really important lesson that's underpinned a lot of things that I do. And during my time at Goldman in Hong Kong, one of my friends, he was a derivatives trader, and he was the one who got me into crypto. This was 2017, 2018, and I dabbled a little bit. I held a bunch of coins, but I never, I kind of didn't actively trade. And
Okay.
I only revived my wallet like 2, 3 years later, and I held like a bunch of shit coins. So it was nothing reasonable, anyways. And, coming to US, this was like years later. I've been, like, I'm an artist, and in a sense that art has always been my passion since I was in my teens. I was never allowed to go to school for it, so I've always, loved it, but know that I don't have an outlet for it. And during COVID, it was my outlet to express myself. And, NFTs was the place where I wish that I could, sell digital art, right? And one thing led to another. I kind of stalled myself for a year, did alpha calling, and now really trying to go back to doing art. But
Hmm.
I came into the space with full intention of being an artist, actually. So, I saw a question being asked, and if there are any questions as well, feel free to ask, um, in the family or theater chat, or the AMA questions channel above. But yeah, I spent 4 years at Goldman Sachs, and, 2 years in Hong Kong, 2 years in New York, both in the trading division and the investment banking division. So really tough, junior programs where I really didn't have a life, and, really grinded. And then got an offer to go to Oaktree in, LA, which is one of the biggest credit funds in the world. Um, and between that, I went to Thailand and trained Muay Thai for 8 months, so took time off. Um, but just I'm really happy with where life is right now, and everything that I've accomplished.
Yeah, I also noticed that in your bio too. It said fighter. I was like, is she like a boxer or like a UFC fighter? Like I
Muay Thai, no, 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 Muay Thai. But it's more, it's a, just imagine punches with kicks and elbows and knees. So it's the most comprehensive stand up striking. I
yeah.
don't really do groundwork. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's super dope. I also think too, in general, anyone who's listening to this too, you should definitely invest into some, like, some defense, as far as like self defense, even if it's like karate, boxing, anything, male or female. But
Yeah,
one
it's a really like self confidence booster as well, and I think it's for everyone.
Right,
Yeah.
and I would also go as far to say, if you have like some mild anger issues, that it kind of helps you like deal with those anger issues and get them under control.
That I can confirm. I think that these days I'm practicing much less. And
Mm-hmm.
so whenever there's Twitter, like, people that I need to fight, I feel like I'm just going at it, you know? And so
Right.
maybe that's the reason why I'm so abrasive on Twitter sometimes. But Like I think that accountability and transparency is like just my bread and butter, and the way I, communicate that can be quite aggressive.
So do you feel like you gravitated towards finance first and then art, but you like always had a love for art, or is it vice versa?
It was always art. I
Okay.
think that since I was a teenager, I remember the moment that I fell in love with art. I was in Russia with my family. My family had business in Russia at the time. Um, uh, and like my family used to run like a commercial fishing company. And so I got to travel a lot growing up. But in Russia, I remember visiting art museums there, and the national art galleries are insane. It's like you can start from one hall, and literally 2 years later you're still in the same building. But it's just there's so much art, and I was just running around. I didn't want to listen to the guide that we had explain the art. I just want to feel it, and so I was
Mm,
running, like just sprinting around. And I remember standing in front of one painting that was like pitch black, and then there was a moon that was like a just iridescent like green glow, and I felt I felt so just overpowered. I just really connected with the piece, and art is so subjective. I think that for me, I do everything with so much passion and emotion that art was sort of something that I resonate with. And I knew that when I was, financial modeling in school or even in my job, you just know that I'm not going to feel the same way as I'm
mm,
typing my numbers on a spreadsheet, no matter what. You're just
right.
not going to get the same feeling. So, when I left Hong Kong after 2 years in trading, I actually applied to art school in Italy and got in for just classical painting school. I wanted to learn from like, Renaissance type of painters, and luckily got in. But I also told myself if I got the investment banking job in New York, I would go there, because if my goal is to live in the US, this is my last chance to do that whilst being
Mm,
sponsored as an international person. And so 2 days before I was going to quit in Hong Kong, I got the job in New York, which was literally one in 1,000. It was investment banking program at Goldman Sachs in New York City, and it's literally it's not a product group, it's a coverage group. It's literally all any finance bro would be happy to take the job. And so I just couldn't say no to that, because from a just fundamental level, that was just such a good career opportunity. And so I took it, grinded for 2 years, and learned as much as I could. And then just got an offer with Oaktree, which in retrospect, as someone coming from a credit background, that would be my dream job.
right.
And it's a great comfy job, but I think that learning about Web3 and everything that NFTs are, I fell in love with NFTs because I feel like this asset class is the right asset class for me, as an investor. And was just proven right that if you're passionate about something, you're gonna just keep going.
Yeah, because from what you just said, it has like the best of both worlds for you. So I was gonna say too, as far as like the sax thing too, like that's definitely like probably I'm pretty sure anybody in the audience would want to have something sex related on their resume. But we're gonna go ahead and skip into one of the questions real quick from John Blazem. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
So you obviously have traveled to many places, and he just was wondering which one was your favorite place to live in.
If I could live anywhere around the world, it would definitely be Phuket in Thailand, just because it's just weather is amazing, beaches are amazing, food's amazing, but also my sport is there. So if I wanted to train,
Mm.
Muay Thai, it's there. It's a place where I can see myself settling. But hope like we'll see.
And they
It's
probably
terrible
have the best
currently,
Muay
so
Thai trainers too, huh? By
exactly,
default, yeah.
exactly. And it's just such a great like cost of living. It's cheap, taxes and all that. So you don't have to grind as hard to live a really nice life, I think.
Okay, so I have an art degree too, so I was wondering, can you draw though? Because like as far as my drawing skills, if someone asks me on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm gonna say a 1. It's definitely not good enough to draw NFTs. But for you, like, what would you rate yourself as far as just pure drawing?
Uh, I would say that I put this. It's funny because like architectures have come to me and like talked about like and said that they really like my line work.
Mm,
But when they say that to me, it's like you be able to see all the flaws, right? But I mean, I love art, and it's something that Like I can show you my work. Um, it's in the family room, but it's just I've always I think that I realized how well I can draw during COVID as well because I couldn't see any of my friends in New York. I was isolated in quarantine in New York by myself from March to June. I think everyone probably remembers where they were around the world when COVID first hit. My family was in Hong Kong and I was in New York by myself. All
Mm.
my colleagues were back home because they're American and I didn't have anyone in New York that I lived with. I don't have a partner, and so I was by myself and didn't see a single person. And so that to me was being able to talk to my friends just through like Facebook portal. If you guys know, it's great sort of app that you like, great sort of system that you could buy, and it follows you around in the room. It's actually really interesting. You should check it out. But um talking to them, I asked some of the friends that, because I was leaving to Thailand, I was leaving this job anyways because I have another job lined up.
Right.
I basically asked every single person that I was close to, around 15 of them, to give me a place that is meaningful to them, and I could take 15, 20, 30 hours a week, like of time to do an art piece for them. And so I started drawing heavily during those times.
Mm-hmm.
And, each piece just was better than the last. And it became, so meaningful as well because each piece had so much meaning. And it was a place where I missed my friends and I put it all on paper. And,
Mm-hmm.
I would mail it to them and it hung in their living rooms or bedrooms, forever. And that to me was, such a beautiful journey. And I moved to Thailand after, and I was also quarantined for 2 months before that, actually. So did a lot more artwork, but for myself and with a lot of color.
Right.
And so a lot of the things that I've released are actually works that I've done during COVID that I never put out. And it's my own work that I've not gifted to anyone. The stuff that I've gifted to people is not going to come out as a NFT collection because that is a memory representative between me and that person.
Right.
But it's the stuff that's me for myself that I'm releasing now, except for like some limited editions that I'm dropping that I'm doing it now live, and so that to me is like in parallel. I realize now I have such a big arsenal of things that I've not shown the world yet and used, and so I think that that's really cool to be able to find people to at least like be happy when they look at your art and not and you're not trying to like be witty or outwit or anything. It's
Right.
you're just trying to make people feel good, and I think that that's the point of it. Yeah.
So how many of these did you do? And they were like all with pencil,
um,
pen, stencil,
I
like.
started with Sharpies. Yeah, I started with Sharpies, and I started with, and then I went into like artist markers. So like Copic markers. I bought like $1,000 sets, and just equipment wise, just have everything, and then you really have the space to do what I want. But I think probably made like 30, 40 pieces over 3 years, four
Okay.
years but I stopped during NFTs for a year because when I first started NFTs, I got my wallet drained my first week, and the scam. I actually minted all my art pieces there. I minted like maybe 10, and the
Ah.
scammer took. I think a lot of people here probably know the story, but the scammer took my two rug NFTs,
Mm.
other people's collections, but kept all of my art pieces in the wallet. So I was like, oh my god, the scammer doesn't want my art, so I must suck,
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
I kind of stopped, and then I kind of stopped and like didn't think about it anymore. Kind of just traded and looked at different projects and became an alpha caller, da da da.
Mm.
And then obviously as an alpha caller, it's weird to call your art, so you don't want to. It's you don't want to one thing become another, or you're a cash grab. So and I think that now it's a little bit better because I don't call my art other than in this server because I think this is like my family and friends,
Right.
or Twitter, but where I work, like I won't call it because I know that if I call it, people will buy it all, right? And punt on it. But people in the server that I work at, if they support me, they will still buy, but it won't be directly like a call, because I think that
Gotcha.
work is work and play is play. And that's how I've been managing. Like I just jump from this server and like family room and underground like all the time, and we're just talking about different things, and I feel super comfortable that I haven't lost my friends.
So definitely Facebook portal over Zoom for the family calls.
It's great, by the way. Yeah, you should check out family portal, like Facebook portal. It's only like 80 or
Mm-hmm.
$90 or 100, and it's basically you switch it on and you it connects to your Instagram video or it connects to your Facebook video.
Oh,
And whenever you move in the room, that camera follows you. So you can be cooking in the kitchen and doing zipping around, and the camera would just like follow you and zoom in on you, which is really cool.
yeah. I think I might have to get that for my older family members, so I don't have to spend 15 minutes setting the phone up every time.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to go ahead and move into the next questions. So this
Sounds good.
next one is, I feel like you already talked about things that you contributed in the space. So I guess,
Mhm.
what is your goal in Web three? As far as, because you just basically told us about your art. So I would say, what is the goal for your art, right? And then what is the goal for you as an alpha caller?
Yeah, so let's do alpha color first because I think that that's my bread and butter, and that's what I still really like finding underpriced assets and finding opportunities. I think that, you know, everyone in this server has experience, or most of them have experience, sort of me being a caller in a different server. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that everyone's grown with me and understand, how to manage their risk and, how to all grow better as a trader overall, right? And we're all learning, and that's always something that I've said. I love making people money. I think that that is something that, seeing people win, it makes me so happy. And I realized that the first time that, my all my communities won during, like, Moody's whitelist, where, was able to take around 300, 400 of them for all my communities. And, it's a situation like that where we all get to mint, and I got to mint one, and, and everyone flipped and, make clean profit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like one person buying something from one ETH and goes to two ETH. That person made one ETH, great, right? But it's more, it's the magnitude of impact that you have in the space. And I think that from that aspect, it's been super rewarding, both from a profits perspective, because my team, um I call them my elves, but they've helped me, and it's like a team of like 11, 12 people that have helped me curate whitelists in bulk. We manage the process, where we do raffles for different servers, and all of us each only take one maximum, right? And
Right.
so it's super fair, it's super transparent. I don't touch my wallet. you know the winner, like, we have like spreadsheet elves that, like, only touch the spreadsheets, raffle elves that only touch the raffles. So it's like super clean process that, we trust each other. None of us are super greedy, so it feels like it was like a very, like, trustable, like, process that we've developed over the months. And now they run the raffles here, so it's like I just totally trust them. I don't feel like someone's gonna pocket five whilst giving the community one, right? And so it's not the values that I have. And if someone wanted to do that with me, I think that person would have been out the team long ago. But I'm glad that I feel like I've been a magnet of really good people around me, and around my communities since the get go. And a lot of us, especially people that I see in this audience and in the family room, are people that, have grown with me for like last like 6, 7, 8 months. So they all know who I am through the way I talk and the way I am, and the way I am on Twitter as well.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah, and I'm
and
glad
and
you
so
said that because I read a
yeah,
tweet, and that's basically why I asked you that question, because I want you to touch on exactly what you touched on. Um,
yeah.
but I was gonna say too, right? As far because I feel like there's a lot of people who call themselves alpha callers, right? I probably definitely tweeted and called myself an alpha caller before.
hmm
But I would say, like, what is like the do's and the don'ts for an alpha caller,
The do's and the don'ts.
even if it's just one on both sides.
Yeah, I think that you have to. A really good alpha caller is someone that puts their community before them.
Okay.
But it's hard because obviously you need to protect your bag. But I remember my, like, struggles at the start. It's like, okay, let me buy what my call price first. Let me buy two. I call it, and then I let me buy another two. That way I can spread it out a little bit, so it's not that I'm buying a lot. And so it's like you have to have those struggles. I find that the people who are too selfish, where it's like I have to protect my bags, I have to pick up all the rares first before I tell my community or to mint. It's like that kind of
Mm,
mentality for me in the longer run is not very, community first, right? But
mm,
it's a slippery slope. It's hard because just someone who's a really good caller in that regard does not make as much money as someone who is a little bit more selfish.
Right.
And so when the day comes, it's like this alpha caller made, X amount of ETH at the cost of what? You know what I mean? And so I personally feel better knowing that I've made people money and those people support me than me just looking good and having a good P&L, right? Because that's not the point. I think that the point is that you're trying to help people and educate people and not to make yourself look good. And that's a difference because you see a lot of alpha callers say that, oh my gosh, like I'm getting every job, I'm getting that. But then how many people actually support them? How many
Mm.
people during, like, let's say a Twitter war, like would actually put their word out there to back you up? Or if someone is asking who's like the best alpha caller, how many of your community members would tag you and say that you are one of the best, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I find that it's actually, I'm very lucky to be on that side of the spectrum where like my community, know who I am and really support me, and I know that they have my backs, and it lets me run further, right? And so I would say, don't be dishonest, and if you put your community first, they will put you first. If you don't put your community first, they will not put you first, and that will actually eat into your opportunities in the longer run, and it's actually worse for your career as a caller.
Mm. Okay, so I hope y'all were taking notes on that one because that was real good. So we already
they,
kind of
they're probably like, we already know this.
yeah.
She's been preaching for months. Yeah.
So we already spoke on some of the Web two background, how you started in Web three, and some of the things that you contributed to the space and your goals, and basically your mindset as far as like alpha calling and just community in general. So I want to go ahead and move into some questions. If you guys have some questions, and then we got one more question for you, and then we're gonna end the podcast for today. So if anybody in the theater had questions, you guys can just add me. You guys can drop them in the family theater chat, or guys can drop them in the family room. I'm gonna check all three of those right now.
Yeah, and one more question you asked me earlier was what's my goal in art as well in the space? And I think my goal has always been the same. It's like if I can be a sustainable artist, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
But bottom line is also just to create things that people resonate with and makes people feel a positive feeling or reminds them of something that is positive. It's art that connects as opposed to just art that looks good to that fits a certain, oh, it's a glitch meta, so let me glitch everything, right? It's not really like that. It's more, can I create something that holds some sort of meaning to either me or to the person I'm drawing for.
Mm.
um yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's how art is the most impactful from the way you're trying to do it, other than like aesthetically pleasing, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that in terms of like transparency as well, I think there's always a balance to talking about projects on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
and calling projects out. I think that it's easier to do, and it's actually more important to do before a project mints, because then the project will know. It's kind of like you'll see the true nature of the project, um, in terms of how they respond, and it actually warns communities to potentially view the mint a certain way. And I think that's something that I'll continue to do if I have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. I think that everyone should have used their voice to be vocal about things that they believe in and things that they don't believe in. And I hope that that actually is the case, because
Right.
I think that people are scared that they'll get their whitelist revoked or their whitelist taken away, or they won't have a whitelist opportunity. But there are more important things in this space that I think that in order to really move forward, you need to do the better thing. And so, for example, like Lewis, who was here just now, like he calls out projects and he calls out rugs all the time, and he's always spot on, right? And I think that you do something like that and use your space, no matter what your voice or your following looks like, to do the right thing and call people out, because you know a lot of times people think that, but they don't say it. And if you don't say it, then you're like
You're part
you're
of the
letting that
problem.
you're part of the problem, right? you're
Yeah.
you're complicit, and that's something that will not move the space forward. So I just hope more people are honest.
So as far as like minting and the mint process, how do you feel when people cut supply, are just like general changes, like, hey, okay, we're meant I guess it's not as big as cutting supply, but like someone saying, hey, we're gonna mint on this day, and then change it, and they say, no, we're gonna mint a week from now. Or maybe they say, hey, we have 3 phases, and for the 3 phases that we're having, everybody can mint one per wallet, and then they change it to unlimited amounts. Like, how do you feel as an alpha caller when those things happen?
I'm a grandma, so like if you ask me to like rush and mint something within 15 minutes, I'm probably gonna still be sleeping. Like it's very difficult for me to like, chase different things where it's like false marketing and FOMO tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not very good at it, and it's probably going to be a missed opportunity for me. But at the same time, the things I advocate for are teams that, over allocate by less than 20% because, and like a longer time window for people to mint and to encompass everyone's time zones. And, be reasonable with your mint price because if, if you don't mint out, what are you going to do, right? You're going to refund or you're going to cut supply. But it's in general, it's really bad signaling for people in general,
Mm-hmm.
for communities to mint. And so I think that it's it's really hard to run a project, but you need to try to do the right thing every step of the way. And if you don't do the right thing, apologize and be genuine about it
Right,
because everyone makes
communicate.
mistakes. Communication, but in a sense, in a way that isn't that's you're actually owning up to your issues
Mm-hmm.
because you know it's okay to make mistakes, but it's poor communication where you said you're going to resume the website in 15 minutes, but you resume the website in an hour. That 45 minutes of you not communicating or miscommunicating will make an impact on your project in ways that you cannot quantify.
Mm.
Like quantify or qualify. It's bad. It's bad feels, right? Like so you need to make sure that be on the side of caution and over communicate and tell people, or don't communicate, and after you come out with an answer then you communicate. But when you're in a time crunch and when you're under pressure, how you communicate is so important and signals positive and negatives for your project.
Okay. And so after this question, I'm gonna move into the last
Yeah,
one, which is gonna be like, I'm gonna let you choose between leaving the podcast off with either alpha or motivation. But before we get to that one, I didn't want to skip over underground just because you are in underground. I know this interview
yeah,
is mostly about you, but I just wanted to just touch on underground just for a smidgen. Maybe like
yeah.
speak on something that you feel like underground doesn't have compared to other alpha groups, or why you enjoy being in underground due to like past recent ventures.
Yeah, I think that I've been there for 2 months now. Honestly, it's very quiet. It's quiet in a sense that I get less because I'm one of a, I don't know, 13, 14 person team, and they're different people posting alpha. I'm not, in the spotlight. And I think that, you can argue that, oh, like, don't you feel like you could, have your own channel in all these like multiple discords? There's so much power, and like, call anything. But I actually think that it's better to write, to write deep thoughts on something that, is earlier. I'm not forced to make secondary calls if I don't want to, or if I don't find conviction, because I do feel like there are times that I was forcing myself to make calls where it's much riskier than I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now it's more everyone's trading together. People care about your insight and your mind, and that's the value. And I think that was the value that the team saw in me, that goes beyond just the write-ups and the calls, but it was really what I can bring to the team from a um, just multidisciplinary approach, like advisory and team stuff, and just jump in on every little thing. And I think that it's like managing a business more, and
Right.
it's not just alpha. So
It's more
I
of a
enjoy
team
that part.
player than like you
Exactly.
being the MVP. We need you to bring us from zero to Valhalla type
Yeah,
thing.
there's no like for like that, which is great because like it gives me less pressure, and the calls are the same, and you make good calls, but it's still it's much less um like it's just less. There's also less competition because there are other alpha callers in other discourse that everyone eyes you, and they're gonna fud you if
Mm-hmm.
obviously you just make primary calls and you just get whitelist for people. But I'm like, but if I get whitelist and it's like free, it's a riskless profit, isn't that even better?
Right.
But because then they're not risking anything, right? But I literally put whitelist in their hands of
Right.
projects that I think are good and actually do good. What That's great, no? But it's like you're complete like always fighting to prove yourself in a way, and because the competition is very different, and when you're underground, it's so siloed that unless something like Muratashi happens,
Mm-hmm.
where people leak what you say and then there's like backlash, I life is very very peaceful. like,
Mm.
um, yeah, and I get to do more art, and I get to, you know, and I get to trade more, and I think that my bag is happier because I'm trading more. But because before I would really, I still miss my whitelist, not gonna lie, but it's still it's from a trading perspective, I'm better because just aggressively taking profits when I need to and stuff.
Right. So definitely, I mean, anybody who listens to this, I feel like is gonna want to get into underground. I already like was eyeballing underground for a while, just because like more of my strategy is kind of like what I don't want to say influencers, right? But I'll say notable people are purchasing, right? And since I've been in the NFT space for like 2.5 years, and I was in NFT projects that were worth X amount of money, it was just kind of easier for me to spot out like the notable people, right? Are the people who already had big bags in NFTs and kind of like were on the new trending topics for NFTs. But I was gonna say that basically anybody who watches this is definitely probably gonna want to get an underground pass if they don't already have one or if they're thinking about it. So that was like a little free promo for underground, even though we didn't want to do that on purpose. Um, but yeah, I would just say we're gonna go ahead and move into the last question, which is, would you like to leave off with either like a piece of alpha or motivation? Either one, it's up to you.
Yeah, I think that so in the family room, boneless chicken asked this question like, "What's my thoughts on the PFP space? Where do we go from here?" Most PFP projects seem to be shitcoins with JPEGs, and I don't think that is sustainable at all.
Mm.
I'm optimistic with art, generative art, but bearish on PFP. I have the same view, and I have not been bullish about PFPs in God knows how long. I Unless the project has utility, unless the project has revenue sharing, unless unless it's like a really big brand that I know that they're not going to fully rug, I don't really touch PFPs. um I think that art is important, but the space doesn't really care. These big blue chips are where they are, but everything else kind of you know is mudded, right? Like it comes out, it mints, and then it just slowly dwindles. And but I'm really bullish on art in general. I'm not very big on generative art. I'm more on the one of one type of artist camp. And
Mm-hmm.
the artists that I have been calling prior to me being on the ground are still the artists that I'm calling, and that's the only offer that, if you know, you know. I think that it's you can't, like, I follow my instincts when I look at artists, and I'm lucky that most of them have been right. And I think that it's the little things that what the artist does after, in terms of curating a community, in terms of marketing, in terms of showing their own art. I think that those things are important levers to look at. But if the art is good, the artist is active, and he's moving through the ranks, whether it's from foundation, super rare, getting on different platforms, getting on different curated drops. I think those are all good things that's going on with the artist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's how I think about it. I think that the meta from ordinals, it's ordinals is dying down, but I think that with what Yuga's doing, I think that there is a revival in some projects already, as we can see.
Right.
But I do think that a new meta is going to come, and um, after Blur, I think that people are still Blur farming, but there definitely are going to be, a new meta of projects that, is non PFP, non art. And, people say it's gaming, but people have been saying it's gaming for the last 2 years. So
Yeah.
when really gonna be a thing, right? And so it's like I'm serious. The year before last, it was literally next year's gonna be the year of gaming, and P2E and stuff. And this year that's still what people are saying. So I have no idea when that is, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we had a lot of people in one of the blue chips that I was in, quote unquote blue chips. It's not in blue chip price range anymore or territory, I don't think, but they were all bullish on just the gaming tokens itself more than gaming. Once I heard someone basically say that like if there was a Web3 game that was profitable, that it would just basically get botted so much that it wouldn't really like be like a thing as far as people playing it for profit anymore. I kind of gave up on Web3 gaming. But I know I would be happy if someone did come out with like a cool Web3 game, right? But it would be to play it, right? And to interact with people and not really to like make money off of it.
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at like Dookie Dash, right? Like it was a lot of people were playing it. There's a lot of activity. I think that things like that where, and then obviously to win a key, and Mongrel won it, and I think that it's great because from a um onboarding standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
people are going to view this as being something that you can achieve this with NFTs, and there's going to be more um, exchangeability between the two, Web 2 and Web 3 in terms of from a gaming perspective, where assets can be digitized in a way that's tradable on exchanges and stuff. And I think that's really exciting. As a non-gamer, I
Right.
can see that happening. So I can let alone a gamer. That's also really intertwined in NFTs. I'm sure they're feeling very excited about sort of seeing this for their sector,
Oh yeah,
right?
definitely.
For me it's art, and being able to do that in art, generative art or digital art or animations. I think that's really that has been what takes my breath away for the longest of time. But I think that art PFPs, are just it's not something I would hold. I would just hold actual art that I love that
Mm.
are digital. Yeah.
And so too, while we're still in the art, because I just noticed I missed this question, I was gonna ask you what was your biggest win and your biggest loss, right, in crypto. So
Yeah.
this could be a coin, this could be an NFT. Um, your biggest win. It doesn't have
My
to be financial, not to cut you off, but it doesn't have to be
That's
financial. It
okay.
could be like a connection. Like maybe you bought this NFT, right? It went to zero, but when you went there, you got to meet your favorite artist, or you got to meet someone who gave you a connection to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My biggest win was Moonbirds. I had a rare Moonbird.
Wow.
Um, Sold it, but at the same time, during that period of time, I was playing a lot of futures, so it was not a great time. But yeah, anyways. And my biggest loss, I would say, it's hate. I round tripped my mint. I was flipping, and I made some change,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of selling my last before reveal at 90th, I bought another at 90th. So I actually lost 18. Yeah, my but I'm almost back at where my ATH with my funds. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really happy to be where I am, and now I'm like aggressively stacking ETH without spending. And the art bags that I have are bags that I will hold, and otherwise, I'm very, very liquid, especially like in this space, and just in real life. Like I'm not very over invested in anything. Kind
Mm.
of learned my lesson from early last year in terms of leverage plays, and not trading things that I'm not comfortable in. And that's one thing that I'm good at. NFTs. Stick to NFTs. Don't because you can gamble your winnings away really easily in an
Right.
asset class that you don't understand, or in a strategy that you don't understand, just because it's thrilling. And I think that preservation of capital needs to be focused on more versus just aggressively making money. You don't want, your degen plays are going to add up, and so it's more important for you to learn how to opt out of them, and learn how not to FOMO into every trade, and only focus on conviction trades. Because if you do the math on your P&L and how your degen plays add up, you'll realize that you've been pretty reckless in trading. And I
Yeah.
think that more people, the faster you realize this story, you'll realize that I may stack ETH slower, but at least I'm stacking ETH. And you're not just like making 10% one day, losing 20%, making 15% one day, losing 35%. Like you don't want to be in that type of cycle because it could be really disheartening and you're not in the right mindset to make money.
No, I agree with that 1,000%. We have RCIV. He's asking you, have you
Yeah,
done any blur bidding this season?
I only have like 100 something points, but with Sensei that has a Blur bid bot now, I think that I'm gonna start using it these few
Mm,
days. I don't know when, but I don't really want to put too much ETH in a hot wallet, but I guess I have to. Um, and yeah, I also don't like to get hit with NFTs. I remember first day I was like, I got a moonbird. I was like, oh shit, like I don't want a moonbird,
what did your
but
moonbird look like?
it was something random, and then I sold it, and it pumped 2 ETH day after. But my luck with stuff is very funny. Like the way life works in this space as well. I remember I had a Pixelmon bag and did the Dutch auction at 3 ETH. I only had one, and then I bought more going down. And then when I cut Kevin because I thought he was really ugly.
Mm,
And the next morning when I woke up, it was at 8 ETH. And I
wow.
was like, why did I cut Kevin? Um, yeah.
Yeah, that
Sometimes
reminds
like you're
me.
just too rational.
Yeah, I bought Azuki at 1 ETH, and I don't even think it was 24 hours, and it went to 2 ETH, and this was like when ETH was 4K. So I was just like instantly dumped it. Like I just felt like a boss. I was walking around happy the whole day. And like now, I'll tell people I sold it like within 24 hours, and they were like, they just look at me like I'm slow.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's hard. You can't time the top and you can't time the bottom.
Hmm.
And so it is what it is, right? Like you all you can do is just keep growing as long as your profits are more than your losses. That's all.
And as far as Blur and OpenSea goes, if you had to pick one as far as long term, which one do you think survives longer, Blur or OpenSea?
Ooh. I think both will be here, but I think that there are different platforms for different people. And Blur is for traders,
Hmm.
and there will Manifold is for creators. Like there are different platforms and different, that will be made for someone. But Web3 is not just for traders. Web3 is not just for artists. And
Right.
I think that there's too much sentiment about creator you have to honor creator royalties everywhere. In this market, your art has become a commodity, and that is how it is. When you choose to sell your art, you are choosing to commoditize your art. That's also why I'm not an artist. I did not, in the end, I decided that I want to go to art school, but I don't want to be an artist because I do not want to commoditize my art. And now
Mm,
it's on my terms, and I don't need to make money off art because I believe that I can make money off finance, but I will never need my art to put food on my table because that twists the meaning of it. And sorry, we're running over, but and the same thing. It's like all of these platforms will be made tailored to someone and for a specific demographic and in their best interest, because all of these interests can conflict, like will like clash, right? Like a
right.
trader's interest is to have minimal fees, a creator's interest is to have maximum royalties and non-voluntary royalties. And then a collector's interest is, just be able to see all the art in one place and to be able to filter by all the artists' editions and all that, and like be have it be a place where they could curate easily. So everyone will have competing priorities, and there will be platforms that are created just for them. But
Hmm.
I think that the entire sentiment, especially on Twitter, where it's you know there's a huge there's victimization of like artists being like, you know it's broken sea, it's whatever, eh, because they're not honoring creator royalties. And I think that it, everyone needs to chill out.
Yeah.
Open editions artists really capture that moment and made a lot of money. It's great, but and they get very sensitive when you call some artists cash grabs. It's like the same. I think everyone needs to treat artists and treat projects the same. If an artist is cash grabbing, call them cash grab. That's fine, right? Like you can't just say, oh, I'm an artist, therefore I'm not a cash grab. There's no
Right.
such thing, right? And I think that people need to stop hiding behind these titles and feel entitled, because I think that all of this entitlement in the end will just wash away. Everyone's equal, and this space is for everyone. It's not just for one person.
Right. So I mean, I like the perspective on that one. I'm glad we got to interview you today, and we have an
Yeah, I
audience, so that was cool.
know, right?
It was
Yay.
different. But this one is definitely, as far as like, I've only done two, right? The first one is with NFTs are nice. So that's Jimmy, the guy with the, I think it's like blue ice helmet PFP or whatever
Yeah,
for a mutant.
yeah.
Yeah, so we got to talk to him. That was cool. But I definitely like this one, just because of your insights, right? And how far you push as far as like putting community first, and just your perspective on artists and artist royalties, right? So I think that's going to be it, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Like I said, this is going to be on YouTube. So if you guys did miss this, or maybe if you had somebody else you wanted to send to so they could get a better perspective on community, and just NFTs in general. I'll make sure I send you guys that link. But yeah, any last words?
Um, no, I really appreciate everyone who's in the audience. I think that most people know me, and so you're just hearing my story again and again. And most people support. So, if you see me on Twitter Spaces, like you're there to support, and I really appreciate it. And I think that, the family room is awesome, and I hope that everyone is here, and understands the moral of this place of just creating, like, we're not dropping anything, right? Everyone's just bringing value and adding value, and I'm always here to answer questions. I'm always here to rant, and so if there's anything in the space that we want this to be a place that you feel home when you come here, and it's comfortable, and you can talk about anything, and everyone here will have your back. Obviously, if it's right, if it's wrong, then we'll also call you out. But I think that that's important, and being able to find that core in the space is what the family room is about. So if you can think of ways that you want to contribute to the family room, also just let any of the elves, or family members know, because I think that this space is created for you guys, and how you guys grow out of it is totally up to you. So that's really my rant. But
All right, guys. So we appreciate you tuning in. For you guys who don't know, you can find me on Twitter if you click my profile through the Discord. But all of my social medias are the same, right? So it's at Brandnewflix, which is basically just brand new, and then Flix, all as one word. So I'm gonna be posting this on my Twitter page first to let you guys know it's live, and I'm also gonna send it to her so she'll be able to post this in here, maybe as an announcement, for the people who missed the video. But once again, I appreciate you letting me into this community, because this is a closed private community. I was not in this community before, and I didn't know about this community, but this is definitely a tight-knit, strong community. So I appreciate you guys even giving me the opportunity to interview her today. And definitely the point of these interviews, right, is just, as far as like Web3 goes in general, I feel like it's not a lot of video content or just content specifically for creators, right? Artists, just anybody who's in Web3. There's really no backstory or any background as far as like interviews, right? Or, just your past before Web3. So that's what we try to touch on. We try to uncover what you did before Web3 and your views on Web3, right? Because sometimes all we have to go off of is tweets and people's actions. But when I feel like people listen to this video, they'll definitely understand where you're coming from. They'll see how genuine you are and that you put the community first.
yeah, thank you. I think that's the goal. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Peace.
See you guys in the family room. Bye.
Don't tell me I can't spell opportunity.